you can't save money just by moving somewhere cheaper. Well, I mean, you can kind of, but one of the things we talk about in housing and the economy and everything else is what I call the move somewhere cheaper fallacy. I'm sure you've seen this online. Anytime anyone complains about the cost of housing or rent or whatever have you, everyone's like, move someplace cheaper. It's a riff on the old drive until you qualify thing. And um and you have a lot going on in housing right now. Rents are rising because of inflation. There's a housing shortage. We didn't build nearly enough housing for the people that we have. And you also have right now, in terms of buying houses, you have two large generations, the boomers and millennials, competing for the same asset, which is going to drive up prices. So, the reality is you can't always just move somewhere cheaper, and somewhere cheaper may not be somewhere that you want to be for a variety of reasons that range from crime to economic devastation. And people always point out there's so many small towns and places we need people in small and rural towns. The sad thing is most of the job opportunity for a lot of people, unless you work in a set of very specific industries, is going to be in the major cities. Now, I've always said that is an economic mistake that we've made over the last 20 years in this country, is that we have concentrated all the job opportunities in a dozen or so kind of superstar cities throughout the country: Seattle, San Francisco, LA, New York, Dallas, Austin, Miami, places like that. To where now, if you don't live, in a big city or in the suburbs of that city, your job prospects are going to be very limited. Now, there are lots of great opportunities in cheap places in rural areas. There are. The difficulty is you need to work in some very specific industries in agriculture or trucking or support of agriculture or something, or like own a business in that town, or maybe in a trade, like if you're an electrician, all this type of thing. There's kind of a very narrow set of things. And the other sad reality is, even if you're in a trade, if a business should shut down or should go under or get bought up and you're suddenly laid off, unemployed, something happens, you become injured, disabled, the other opportunities may just not be around for you to shift or change jobs. It also can depress wages over time. So when people say, just move, it's really a bit of a fallacy, because the economic realities, geography matters, and geography matters a great deal. And I know a lot of people, in the East Coast can, live in some town you never heard of, but that's near enough to a big city to make living there affordable. That isn't true, especially once you hit the Midwest and farther out west, where if you, want to be able to survive and have job options, decent schools for your kids, all this type of thing, you need to be living near some type of city center that has some sort of jobs. I've even lived in places where you can live near a major city, but the city that you live in doesn't have a major employer, and therefore you still are on the drive. I had this when I lived in Tacoma. Um, Tacoma didn't really have a major employer because Seattle's right there, and Seattle is a big city. And so there was, a lot of people who, the living in Tacoma, working in Seattle thing is tough because it is a long drive, not in distance, but in traffic because of geography. You have to go around Puget Sound. But it really, and I did that commute for a couple months and said, oh, gave up, and I moved farther north. But it can be a difficult thing. Now, there aren't some jobs in Tacoma, but you're looking at service industry, you're looking at, basic trades, construction, things along those lines. And if you work in those and can live there, great. You're going to enjoy a lower cost of living, you're able to go farther, fantastic. That's great. I mean, that's perfect. That is not necessarily an option for everybody in everybody's situation. The other aspect that I think people also forget when it comes to moving somewhere else is, you lose a lot when you move. I've moved almost every 2 years of my adult life around cities and around the country. And I have made and left so many friends, friend groups, friendships, dating prospects, all this type of thing, because needed to move, was trying to get an opportunity, trying to make something happen, all this type of thing. And you also leave family behind. And if you have, little children and you need family care to save on childcare costs, that makes moving very difficult. If you, have aging parents, which a lot of us are getting to I'm in my mid to late 30s, but a lot of us are getting to the place where parents are aging, need help, then that also locks you into a certain place and location. That shouldn't be a bad thing. It shouldn't be bad that people kind of want to stay where they're at, or want to be able to stay where they're at, or find something that they can afford in the general area that they're used to, where they have a support network and friends and family and all this type of thing. That's not a matter of, oh, the markets, or oh, work harder, or whatever have you. It's about building a wide variety of housing in a wide variety of places. And there's very few cities that have taken that very seriously. I've seen a couple examples. Seattle did its upzoning and allowed denser housing to infill. It has not caused rent prices to go down, but they have stabilized coming out of the pandemic. I've also observed this in Denver. A lot of the post-war bungalows get bulldozed for three-story townhouses in, Millennial Square and painted millennial gray, sort of thing. And that's the type, that wide variety of, let's have single family homes, but let's also have duplexes. Let's also have, triplex. Let's also have your basic modest, three-story, six apartment building. There's a street in Denver called Writers Row, because all the buildings are named after famous writers. They're very simple. They're built in the 30s, but they're very simple, kind of single staircase. And there's, I think, 2 apartments per floor, 3 floors, so like 6 apartments in there. Things like that are integrate well into. In fact, it is part of a single family neighborhood. Integrate really well into a single family neighborhood. That's what would actually solve the housing crisis, not just telling some people to move somewhere else.